Lists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Pusey and these are your main stories at 3 o'clock. The taxi driver who survived the Liverpool terror attack says it's a miracle that he's alive. In a statement, David Perry described the bombing as an evil act and said he's thankful no one else was injured. Dozens of people have been arrested in the Netherlands after a second night of violence. Protesters set fires and threw fireworks at police in The Hague as they demonstrated against tough new COVID measures. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been sacked as Manchester United manager after the team suffered its fifth league defeat in just 7 matches. And that's just about it from me for now. We'll be back with all of the very latest news in around an hour's time. Thanks a lot for watching.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry and cold for many. Let's take a look at the details. Skies will clear in the southwest and temperatures will fall. It will be cold tonight, and in the countryside temperatures could dip below freezing. Some showers will continue in the southeast and it will be windy around the coast. There will be clear spells between the showers. Wales will have a dry and clear evening with the frost forming tonight. Temperatures could fall as low as -2 degrees Celsius in parts of the countryside. Clear skies also extend into the Midlands with a chilly evening to come and temperatures expected to fall quickly. A strong wind will continue to blow along the northeast coast, which brings showers to northeast England. These will be blustery at times with some possible hail. Southern Scotland should stay mostly dry with clear skies, and it will turn rather chilly tonight with temperatures as low as -5 degrees Celsius in some spots. A dry and clear night in Northern Ireland too. It will be breezy around the coast, but turning cold inland.
Canary Islands.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About, your weekend fix, where I pose a question that needs plenty of time for discussion. And today, we need to talk about manners. Good manners cost nothing, goes the old adage. Well, if that's so, perhaps the contrary is true. Bad manners cost something. But what? Now, it may seem like a light topic, but the inherent importance of social mores, cultural norms and idiomatic customs are the very stuff of community, cooperation and integration. They are a collective's shared identity and system of rules. They are the unwritten instructions of being part of the pack. Those that break or bend them could face ostracism through being feared subversive or have their actions read as aggression. Queue jumping or bumping into someone without apology probably instigate more fisticuffs than most other acts of impolitic behaviour. Etiquette found wanting, combust big business deals, unceremoniously end first dates, lead neighbours to war, render rabid road rage, justify expulsion from public venues, fan the flames of family feud, and erode multicultural cohesion. Anybody who has spent extensive periods in exotic climes will doubtless have an adage or two about not being au fait with local law, with sometimes less than comedic consequences. Yet courtesy, manners and etiquette are often relative, rarely immutable and ever evolving. Gone are the days when 10 commandments put the world to right. With myriad creeds, sects and religions, many maxims today clash and collide. Technology has also revolutionised our interactions and with it, expected patterns of comportment. What are the established protocols of a mass Zoom meeting? Who decides? Social media apps update regularly to address novel expectations of perceived correct behaviour. WhatsApp brought out the feature to opt out from blue ticks marking a message as read, allowing the user to bypass having to navigate the ill-established and unwritten rules on how long is appropriate before a response should be given. Sliding into DMs on Instagram, the 3-date rule becoming an archaic trope of the 90s, and going Dutch in an egalitarian age recalibrate historically different societal expectations of men and women. Even pandemic politesse on whether to wear a mask or not to mask shows that manners are a living, dynamic currency used around the world to shore up societal cohesion and maintain order. Without them, mankind is reduced to a primitive and pugnacious beast. These customary tics, observed as herd mentality and pack behaviour in the animal kingdom, are utterly crucial to our rubbing along nicely as a social species, and yet are chronically underanalysed, despite forming universal expectations of shared modes of communication that are imperative to understand without being told. As all generations regard the world through new perspectives, as society permits a broader gamut of sexualities, creeds and cultures confined within the same garrisons, it is important to human harmony that somehow we do find commonality over conflict. When you come to think of it, manners are the magic dust of harmony in any troop, tribe or team, the essential sugar needed to make interactions palatable, not poisonous. Yet as society rapidly evolves in unprecedented directions, they are becoming weapons and objects of abuse. What is behaving in the proper way? Well, it would help if we all sang from the same hymn sheet. Today, we really need to talk about manners. Well, we can now chat to etiquette and behaviour expert Liz Brewer. Liz, how should one behave in today's society? What manners are the timeless manners, do you think, that stand, the test of the ages?
Well, listening to you talk just now, I think you've just about covered everything. But where people get confused, and especially in this 21st century, the age of technology, etc., is you have to understand what it's all about. It's about putting people at ease, not causing offence, and actually just being rather nice. There's a difference between etiquette, social behaviour, and if you start thinking about, well, what do I do? There are so many different ways of behaving, but what you have to think is, how am I going to make that person feel comfortable? How am I not going to cause offence? And let's face it, that makes life happier. And really, what is the most common sense way of behaving? If you think about that, where there's a rule, there's a reason. I bang on about this, especially in my last book. Mark, your speech could have written a book just now. That would have been a great book. But where there's a rule, there's a reason. So, you put your elbows on the table. There is nobody up there saying to us guys down here, thou shalt not put your elbows on the table. As I say, where there's a rule, there's a reason. If you're sitting, in a line of people, you put your elbow on the table, you're blocking that person out. If the other person's doing this, that person's being blocked out. Common sense. If I'm sitting with you and I want to put my elbows on the table, I'm not blocking anyone. Well, as I say, where there's a rule, there's a reason, and that's common sense. What's happened, especially due to the last year and a half, where people have been isolated, they've lacked human sort of contact, we've got into Zoom, we've got into technology, we've forgotten really what it's like to actually feel another person's energy, have a proper conversation one-to-one. Now I find I go out to lunch or dinner, the phone isn't slapped on the table. I'm a human being, you're a human being. We don't need that interruption any longer. We're now beginning to value the other person rather than wondering what's going on out there that I may be missing. Is anybody, texting me, etc., etc. Human contact, we are animals. We need human connection. You have an aura, I have an aura. Our aura is energy, and it actually interacts. I can walk in a room and I can decide, I like you. I want to have a conversation with you. I'm going to smile at you. You can feel the same. Or I walk in and I feel as if I want to slightly retreat. With some people, that happens, the general feeling of wanting to know another person, almost instantly. And yes, we used to go and feel you. We could kiss you on both cheeks, give you a hug. So with some people, it would take days, weeks, months. With some people, never at all. You never felt that feeling of, I want to merge with your energy as it was.
I mean, a lot of manners do come down to that sense of body language, that's sort of the things that we communicate without being vocal. But there's been a lot that's changed when it comes to expected values and standards in the UK. I mean, in the West in general, but the UK's always had a reputation for the stiff upper lip and having a very sort of strictured sense of comportments that we inherited from the Victorian era. But so much has changed. So, holding open doors, giving your seats to a woman, especially when it comes to the gender differences. And now, of course, there seems to be people out there who are essentially offence diviners. They're going around trying to find things that they're going to find insulting.
Absolutely.
Because you've missed their pronoun.
Absolutely.
Where are we?
There's too much aggression. There's too many people going around trying to find fault, rather than looking and thinking, what's great, what's good that's going on. The sun can be shining, but, oh, no, we've got clouds coming, we've got rains coming, etc., etc. I know we are living in a critical time, but it's about time we started to look and focus on the things that is going well. We've got problems in this country, and we think it's personal. We think it's to do with our government. You look around. America's got a far worse problem than we have as far as containers and lorries and backups are concerned. But we're taking everything far too positively, and we're too aggressive about it. You're not going to sort out the world by sitting in the middle of the road and aggravating other people whose lives may depend on them getting from A to B. That's not going to solve the problem.
So manners, in many respects, are a sort of ointment, a link to put on top of things to calm situations down, whereas perhaps now certain expectations of behaviour, or especially when it comes to using the correct words in this day and age, it's gone beyond something being impolite to it almost being considered a form of abuse. Are we losing our manners?
No, it's not a form of abuse. What it is, people, because we've had the pressure put on people about behaviour, you have to do this, you have to do that. A lot of this is to do with protocol. There's a total difference between protocol and etiquette. Protocol is to do with the order of things, government, councils. You have to have protocols so that, the mayor's going to come in before whoever else, his alderman. That person sits there, that person sits there. It's protocol. And there's a code of behaviour, and you address that and you stick to it. And that makes things run smoothly. When it comes to behaviour, social behaviour and etiquette, OK, there is a way of laying a table. There is a way of greeting people. Again, that's to do with order. But if you don't know how to do it, again, what you have to think in your mind is what is the most sensible way of doing it? What's the most sensible way of laying a table? Obviously, you want your water glass near you. You want, if you're going to have white wine, that's next. If you're going to have red wine. So it's better to put things in an order so you don't have glasses bumping into each other. Exactly the same with knives and forks.
Do you think we ought as a society to be making more of manners? Do you think that we're sort of losing some of those old-fashioned manners and values because we find them outmoded?
No, what we have to do is just recognise, don't be in such a hurry all the time. Remember to say thank you. Remember to say please. Look around, be aware of the people around you, and if somebody needs a seat, it's a question of, you know, you're buying something in the supermarket. That person at the till is a human being. You need to say hello or smile at them. They're not a machine. And it's been the result of the fact that our lives have speeded up to the extent that we forget and we don't seem to have time to remember. We shouldn't have to remember to say thank you, please, hello, how are you, etc. You know, the format which people send you, I get so much now. Dear Liz, hope you are well, or how are you? Well, you know, I'm glad somebody hoped, but that isn't the message. The message is whatever you want to say to me. It's treating human beings as you'd like to be treated yourself. That's nothing new. That has been going on since our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. It's always been the same. And if you haven't got time to teach your children, which is what's happened, and you're relying on a school who also doesn't have time, somebody's got to set an example to the next generation that is growing up. Because otherwise, how do they know? Otherwise, we lose our social structure. Liz, we do. I'm going to be very polite and say thank you ever so much for taking the time to come into the studio. Thank you, Alex.
It's been fascinating. Well, there you have it. You thought this was going to be a silly little conversation, but I'm telling you, manners are actually very important. Well, joining me now is Academy Director at Debrett's, the ultimate guide to manners, Rupert Wesson. Rupert, I'm fascinated by manners in the modern age because there are so many different things that we need to attribute correct forms of behaviour to now. Does Debrett's keep up with modern-day etiquette, or are you firmly stuck in the past?
I would like to think we keep up, and we try to keep up. And we would never deny for a moment that etiquette is constantly evolving. And those people who thought that etiquette was last seen disappearing over the horizon in the closing chapters of Jane Austen novel are hugely mistaken. Yes, there are some people who would love to preserve etiquette in aspect and for it never to change. But the reality is it does change, it must change, and we as a business are making sure that we change with it.
So tell me about modern day etiquette, social media etiquette, things like that. I mean, for instance, I used as an example in my opening WhatsApp, where you can choose to have the 2 blue ticks or not. And if you have the blue tick, there's a whole sort of subtext of reading between the lines and psychological interpretation of the time someone takes to respond. Is there now a modern day etiquette on things like that?
Yes, there is. And like all real etiquette, it is largely, the fine details are largely unwritten. My first advice would be don't overthink it. Don't spend your life counting down the seconds until somebody reads it, or counting down the seconds until they reply after having read it. I think that's a one-way street, and you will work yourself into a frenzy for no good effect. But just acknowledge that you may not be the most important thing in that person's life at that very moment, and move on. At Debrett's, we have a number of, principles that underlie it, and we agree completely with Liz, where it is, for us, etiquette is about care and consideration for other people. And you can roll that out into your social media interactions, your emails, your voicemails, and all of these other forms of communication. But the principles, firstly, for me, don't waste people's time. I'm thinking particularly of emails or Zoom meetings. Other principles, don't say things digitally that you wouldn't say to people face to face. I think that's critical. Also, don't be too quick to judge what people put out there. I mean, both in terms of their content. Everybody's entitled to have a different opinion to yours, but also the way in which they do it. We all speak with different styles. We come from different backgrounds, and so don't be too quick to judge. The great thing about the internet is it allows us to connect with millions of people worldwide. The bad thing is it allows us to connect with millions of people worldwide, and some people all of a sudden find themselves exposed to situations or people or viewpoints that they've never had to contemplate before. And so my advice is don't be too quick to judge.
One thing that fascinates me is the change in manners when it comes to the different gender expectations of the past. You know, men were expected to hold open doors for women and give up their seat and pay the bill and walk on the carriage side of the thoroughfare. But there's almost this concept now that if you did that for a woman, you might be offending her or undermining her. Has Debrett's had to essentially tear out entire chapters and rewrite them, or somehow have you managed to calibrate these very opposing opinions into sort of one sensible instruction?
Well, we go back to this idea, care and consideration for other people. What is right for the other person? And there are certain things that you can do, and holding the doors open is a good one. I mean, I hold the door open for anyone. I don't make an exception for women, and I think that's the way that etiquette is moving, because a lot of those things, whilst on the face of it seem polite, and for a lot of people they are absolutely essential in the world in which they live and couldn't see it any other way. As I said, etiquette moves on. Things have developed, and I think if we were to perpetuate all of those, those gender-driven etiquette behaviours, I really think that we would be trying to hold the world back. And a lot of people look entirely backwards for etiquette, whereas certainly at Debrett's, we look at the etiquette that is evolving around us and help people make sense of it.
Rupert, fascinating stuff. I think it's time for me to get the latest tome from Debrett's so I can bone up on how to be a better person in the 21st century. Fascinating stuff. That's Rupert Wesson there, Academy Director of Debrett's. Well, let's talk now to communication and body language expert Judy James. Judy, what do you think? Do you think manners today have taken somewhat of a back seat? Are we taking the time to be polite and considerate?
I don't think it's a time problem. I think that the pandemic, I think technology have all given us a whole raft of new ways to be rude to people. And a lot of them are giving us ways to be rude inadvertently as well. I mean, I still remember, and it was a long time ago, when somebody first said, I'm going to DM you on Twitter. And I thought it was a death threat. I really, really thought it was a death threat. And then somebody said, no, that's a nice thing. They're going to send you a nice message. I think, I discussing, weren't we, things that are called digital body language, things like the punctuation that we use on a text or an email. All of that's changed so that a full stop is now seen as being rude. But for me, that's good manners. And that's probably the most frightening thing. And it's like old-fashioned etiquette. I was never a big fan of the word etiquette. It implied social class to me. It was the sort of thing that if you didn't know how to hold your fork, not to eat peas with a knife, you had to keep out of the upper class circles. And I think that was very exclusive. But things like manners, even walking down the road now, I live near Brighton, and we've got quite narrow streets, and people just not going into single file when they go to walk past you. So you've got to, and that with social distancing as well. Sometimes you could get home and you'd be fuming because you think, why are the manners so bad? And then hate yourself because you feel about 90 years old for going out and thinking like that. So, yeah, there's a sort of modern world of technology, etiquette rules that I don't know who's creating them, but boy, have you got to be on top of them. And then we've got the simple manners of understanding other people and being more thoughtful.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing about staying on top as these manners evolve when it comes to social media. There's emoji manners, there's everything. But what about manners in different cultures? I've lived abroad a lot, and it's only really when you spend a significant amount of time in a different culture that isn't British culture, you realise quite how obsessed with manners we actually are. But where we're now adapting, we're becoming a more multicultural society, how is that impacting on our ability to integrate when we have such a sort of complex unwritten rule book of how you should behave in society. You know, sitting on a train next to someone, you would think twice about opening the sort of, you know, particularly odorous pot of food you might have brought with you, or conducting a conversation with them if it's a complete stranger. Whereas in other countries, well, no one necessarily worries about those things. So how important of reading those cues and knowing those cues to making sure society is cohesive and integrated?
I mean, the cues are important. A lot of it would be what I would call a communication shorthand that we've kind of missed out on because we've been in lockdown, because we've been wearing masks, etc. So, for instance, if I were in the studio with you and something funny happened, I could use a very small gesture, an eyebrow flash that you probably wouldn't even see on camera, and you would get that I've seen something funny, and you'd just... So now, as you say, you'd have to send an emoji of a smiling face or a laugh, but then you'd have to analyse the emoji. How would that, should it have tears coming out? Is that an insult? And then, of course, absolutely, Alex, we need to take in other cultures. How would somebody else see this? We can't create those rules and then think, oh, if you don't behave like this, you know, you're wrong in some way. It could just be that people have a different cultural idea of what's polite and what isn't. And that's a huge problem, especially in business, where I do a lot of work, and people, they almost want to have a book of what the cultural rules are like abroad, and those books aren't really up to date. They don't really work. I think the only thing we can do is understand that things will be different, like greeting rituals, gesticulations, even the use of emojis, and just understand that although we like to think that we're global, that other people might see it in a different way. So it's being a little bit more thoughtful and allowing for that margin of what might be error in an assumption that that person's not being well-mannered. They probably would be in their own culture.
Judy, thank you so much for coming on and explaining all of that. I find this really fascinating. Judy James there, of course, body language expert, regular on this show. You've just heard from Liz Brewer, Rupert Weston from Debrett's, and Judy James, body language experts. Now, after the break, I'm continuing this conversation with former royal butler Grant Howells and Diana Mathers, etiquette expert. See you in a couple of minutes. You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK, the world, and our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We're here for you. Don't forget to join our community by hitting the subscribe button.
And download the GB News app so you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
The word offensive gets used a lot today for just about everything. Trying to keep up with the deliberately evasive new codes of conduct is rather like chasing a bar of soap around the shower with the added risk of falling down a giant plug hole. Heaven forfend if you forget an extra character from the LGBTQXYZ+++ sequence or misgender someone through the wrong pronoun. But etiquette has always changed. The word actually comes from the word ticket in French and refers to little cards given to courtiers to remind them of proper comportment in the palace, like where to park your horse or how to powder your wig, matters less relevant today. Biting your thumb at someone, as in the opening scenes of Romeo and Juliet, led to bloody street duels in the Elizabethan era. It was the Shakespearean equivalent of the middle finger salute. Kissing teeth is a sign of displeasure in African and Caribbean communities, yet it would probably be regarded as racial mocking were a white person to do it. Not washing one's feet or failing to adequately cover up would be deeply disturbing to mosque attendees, but not really a factor when crossing the threshold of a church. All communities have their own cues and qualms, and the learning and exhibition of which shows an allegiance and appreciation of the societal group into which you are entering. But from cultural appropriation to pronouns, to wolf whistles, to trigger warnings on old Disney films, to liking someone's picture online when you're dating someone else, today's manners and mores are a mental minefield, particularly perhaps for those clinging on to the old-fashioned values of the past and struggling to keep up with tomorrow's script. With expectations rapidly changing and trial by social media putting historic tweets in the dock, we are now all dangerously exposed to breaking contemporaneous codes of conduct invented at a whim and applied in retrospect. Oh, it's hard enough navigating your own national norms before being plunged into another set of standards abroad. When it comes to British manners today, with so many new additions to our own melting pot, cultural relativism must be thrown in as a mitigating agent. Yet if it is getting harder to agree on what good manners are, or we risk diluting or eroding long-held traditions, where do we go from here? And does trouble lie ahead? Well, I'm delighted to say joining me in the studio is etiquette expert and someone who specialises in etiquette and social intelligence, Diana Mathers. Diana, we do live in a world where, I mean, potentially the rate of societal change is it's far outpacing societal change, let's say, over the past 200 years. Are our manners keeping up? Are they standing the test of time?
Well, people get very mixed up between manners and etiquette. Etiquette, as you say, started as a ticket to get into Versailles, so that the hyperlawyer would know exactly how to behave as the court. But good manners are treating others with kindness, consideration and respect. And actually, they are ageless, classless and priceless, because if we treated everyone with respect, then the world would be a happier place. But etiquette then became a sort of social rules. It's a code of rules by which a society lives. And as you say, it changes over time, it changes from culture to culture. It is changing at a huge pace with, as you say, the sort of mix of people now living, but mainly, I think, social media. People living together who wouldn't have necessarily chatted in the past are now chatting with people all over the world who they don't even know. And so it is becoming a bit of a minefield.
But how important are manners to social cohesion? I mean, certainly I've lived abroad in lots of different countries, and it's only when you are somewhere for an extended period of time you realise quite how obsessed by manners we are in the UK. But given that, you know, a lot of rows happen when someone queue jumps or takes something off a supermarket shelf that you were going for, I mean, if we lose our sense of manners, Are we at risk of becoming a very disunited society?
I think we are. As I say, manners goes back to treating other people with respect and kindness and consideration. So if you are going for that, whatever it is, the last thing on the shelf at the moment, if there often is, and somebody else is going up for it, you let them have it, because that is good manners. And what goes round comes round, you know? So if you treat people well, you'll find that they generally treat you well. And I do think manners are really important. To say please and thank you costs nothing, but it does make a big difference to the person you're saying it to.
Do you think the British, we've always had a reputation for the stiff upper lip and having a sort of very strictured code of comportment. Do you think that that's a good thing, and are we losing that?
We're definitely
being
losing
diluted?
it. Absolutely losing it, yes. It is not the same. And in a lot of cases, it is a good thing. Because, you know, to be absolutely, show no emotion and keep that stiff upper lip is not good. But I think that we do need discipline, you know. We need guidelines, like children. They need to know the guidelines, otherwise we become insecure. We need to have some rules for which it is accepted behaviour. And I think they are changing. But if we think about other people, not just ourselves, that is a start. But the actual etiquette of, you know, whether you open the door for somebody, whether you stand up when they come into the room, whether a gentleman walks on the outside of the pavement, most of that, unfortunately, is going. But as a woman, I very much like that. I like to be treated with respect and kindness. If a chap is bigger than me and he's likely to get knocked over by a lorry on the outside of the pavement, I'd rather it was him. But a lot of those things which were considered absolutely de rigueur, even 30 years ago, are now fading.
Well, who are now the authors of manners in this country? Because traditionally, of course, we have a royal family who used to set the standard, and a lot of our manners today have evolved from the mores of the Victorian era, where Victoria and Albert were incredibly strict about how they expected society to behave. But that's becoming less and less relevant now. And as we have, you know, new forms of etiquette we have to navigate with, whether to reply to a text message as soon as you receive it, who speaks when in Zoom meetings, all sorts of, you know, a crazy new world we live in. Who is now in charge of making the manners?
That's a very interesting question, and I don't really know the answer. I think social media has a huge influence now. And somehow I think it's collective in a way, that people are not liking some behaviours, therefore they're saying they shouldn't happen, and do like others. Again, it comes back to normal manners, things like Zoom calls. You mustn't hog the airtime. You know, you've got to give everybody time to talk, as you would in a meeting. Replying to an email, you should do that within 24 hours. And I think what is really important, which is not considered so important these days, is capitalisation and punctuation. If I just write anything and I have to, then my recipient is supposed to decipher it, that is really bad manners, because I'm taking no trouble and time to write the thing properly. I'm expecting somebody else to just understand it. And that is not good for business, and it's not good for personal relationships either. To respect somebody, you've got to think about them receiving it. OK, is my text legible? If it isn't, I rewrite it, you know, and not just quickly as I'm running down the street or whatever. Actually, that's why I quite like voice message, because it's you don't have to worry about the spelling.
Do you think that, you know, now we live in this fast-paced world where everything is instantly accessible, we're becoming rather glib when it comes to respect? I mean, one thing I've noticed is something that seems to have happened with the advent of mobile phones is people don't stick to arrangements anymore. They cancel 10 minutes before they're turning up.
Yes.
I mean, how do we claw back, you know, that's sort of what I like to consider old-fashioned values, but how do we claw back the basics of respect when we don't know who it is who's supposed to be teaching us these rules?
I think really it's common sense. Again, it's thinking about the effect you're having on others. So a lot of people, as you say, the mobile phone, oh, sorry, I'm running late. You couldn't have done that before the phone, because you should have set off, you know. And to make somebody aware that you are upset if they cancel 10 minutes before. I was really looking forward to seeing you, and you just haven't turned up. And I'm really upset about it, because often we just don't bother to reply. We say, oh, it's fine. No, it isn't fine. You've put aside your time to go and meet somebody, look forward to somebody coming to see you, and they just think, oh, I've got a better offer, or oh, too tired, can't be bothered. It's not good enough. And I think we've got to sort of make our feelings known more. And then that generally, hopefully, it's like a, you know, pebble in a pond. The ripples widen.
Thank you ever so much for coming into the studios today, Dan. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you all day about this. It's a really popular topic for me.
It is, yes.
It's fascinating stuff, but thank
Thanks
you.
very
It's been
much.
fascinating to speak to. Well, there you are. Now, former royal butler and an etiquette expert, Grant Howard, joins me. Grant, the royal family always used to set the standards when it came to how one behaves in polite society. Do you think that they are still our role models when it comes to manners?
Hello, Alex, and thank you for having me on your show. I think they do. I mean, today people question about who sets the rules and who comes up with the ideas. And working for the royal family, it's quite interesting that I noticed from that kind of first-hand experience that when they're entertaining or people are around them, they kind of copy them. It's quite interesting when you watch the way that they do things, the way they drink things, hold things, use their napkins. You see other guests that are with them kind of doing the same thing, especially if they're not used to being in their company. So I always say to people that when you're with a member of the royal family, if you're not sure what to do, watch what they're doing, and you can't really go wrong, hopefully.
Butler, how strictured were the rules on you when you were working?
Obviously, there's certain rules that you're kind of encouraged to go with, and those are just your common courtesy, politeness, which is something I've always been since a toddler. You know, my parents were quite strict about kind of upbringing and when it came to etiquette and how to behave and manners. And when you're in the royal household, you kind of continue that. But I mean, the differences are obviously when you're with the Queen or Prince Charles, for a gentleman, you're gonna nod your head when you see him for the first time in the morning or the last time in the evening, which is again a kind of old tradition. But it's kind of shown respect to if I can say, to the title. And as I was told by Prince Charles himself once when we had a discussion about that kind of thing. So it just shows you that when you're in those environments, you do act and behave a certain way. But a lot of us kind of know how to do that already just from our upbringings.
Do royals themselves have to go through significant training, or people who might be coming to visit the royal family, do they have to undergo training of how you should behave if you're sitting down for tea with the Queen?
There's not exactly a Professor Higgins hiding behind one of the doors waiting to jump out and teach everyone how to behave. There is little, let's call it mini classes. So say you're going to receive an investiture, there is obviously a certain kind of protocol of what to do and what not to do, and somebody talks you through those. But it's not that there's an exam at the end of it. It's just a very friendly, light-hearted conversation, just kind of pointing out a few of the kind of facts to know what you do when you're in their company, and it's wonderful because I think people enjoy that, and it also helps them kind of calm down, if I can say that, because people get so nervous when meeting members of the royal family, and they're worried they're going to make an etiquette faux pas. They're worried they're going to do something wrong.
Do you think actually having a royal family has helped Britain to gain this reputation of being a very polite country? And do you think we still are a polite country?
I think the royal family, when it comes to polite and etiquette and manners, I think a lot of people do look at them and think that they are very much, can I say, ambassadors for that, because a lot of my clients that know my background believe that because of being around members of the royal family, that the training I offer is probably as good as being with members of the royal family, because obviously I spent a lot of time with them. So I think they are quite important when it comes to if you like, unofficial ambassadors when it comes to the etiquette and manners. And I think it is dying out. I think it is not from. I don't think so much from my generation and the older generation, but the younger generation. It's slightly, maybe not dying out, but it's changing. I should probably say it's changing more than anything. And I've noticed it, especially with social media. It's really interesting, how people kind of act and behave, and to an extent, we are losing very much some of our older etiquette and manners, but there's kind of new rules kind of seems to be evolving, which is going to happen with kind of modern technology.
Indeed it is, and we've got a minefield to traverse, both of us, don't we, in adapting to the new common courtesies online. Grant Howard, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You just heard from former royal butler Grant Harold and Diana Mathers, an etiquette expert. After the break, we'll be hearing from you, the viewer, to get your take. See you in a couple of minutes. You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now it's time for you, the viewer, to have the final word on our subject of the day. We've been talking about manners, and we've been asking, have the British lost theirs? Margaret says, I noticed for the last 10 years I was having to teach young school leavers to say please and thank you to customers, a basic lesson in manners that should have been taught at home. Peter says, what is wrong with a wolf whistle? I am 66, and when I grew up, it meant that the person you were whistling at was very beautiful. I need to know what it means now to drag myself out of the dark ages. It depends who you're whistling at, to be honest. That's the only advice I can give you on that one. Richard says, I'm 64. My dad was a miner, but he taught us consideration and basic manners towards others. Unfortunately, many parents now don't teach their children how to behave correctly. Well, we've had a poll up today asking whether British people have indeed lost their manners. And it seems that a lot of you think that we're becoming a rather rude society, and 76% of you say, yes, we have lost our manners. What a great pity that is. I hope you've had fun listening to all of our conversation and debate today on a rather left field topic indeed, but I think we've all learned a thing or two about the importance of saying thank you. So thank you ever so much. I'm Alex Phillips, and you've been watching We Need to Talk About. And for the last hour, we've been talking about manners. That's it for today. I do hope to see you next time.
Do you like being a Member of Parliament?
Do you know what? It's an incredible privilege, and you do sort of make gradual change. And I guess the stuff around casework is really rewarding, like when you can intervene and get stuff done. But it's a bit of a slog at the moment, yeah.
What's the most unexpected thing you've learnt about politics and Parliament?
Well, look, I mean, I came into this having had nothing to do with politics, right? I wasn't even a councillor. When I tried to be an MP, I didn't know how associations worked. I didn't know there were 650 constituencies. So that I was and remain, I think, to an extent, quite naive about politics. So quite a lot of it has surprised me, if I'm honest. But in a way where I didn't really have any preconceptions, it's all kind of news. And of course, I have been caught out, and I've made mistakes, and things haven't been as I hoped they would be, and so on. So I think and that's pretty plain for everybody to see. But I'm never going to apologise for that. I think we do kind of need to do better as politicians, and ultimately we are voted in by people who go to work hard every day, who are expected to uphold standards at work and work to a certain standard, and I think we should be as well. But it's the last 6 months has been a big education for me, for sure.
Why? What's happened in the last 6 months?
Well, I mean, I was sacked from the government, which is fine. Everyone's got to get sacked every now and then, but then the kind of machine turns against you, right? And you realise, I guess, when people go around saying different things to different people, obviously you are eventually going to work that out, and that's obviously quite a painful process. And it's been a crash course in politics. And what I've learned is that whilst it did make me very cross at the time, and the Afghanistan situation as a failure of politics, and what's happened to Dennis Hutchins over the last few weeks, the soldier on trial in Northern Ireland, it does kind of make me very cross. There is kind of no point howling at the weather, right? And I've got to find a way of doing things differently and in a better way to try and achieve the outcomes I'm trying to achieve. So it's been, I've learned a lot. I've learned, and I've made mistakes. I think I've been very critical of all my colleagues, which I think, in hindsight, I wouldn't do that again. There were good people in there. There were good people in there. But there's no doubt about it that, there are serious problems in the quality of our politics at the moment. And I think that, the public will only really put up with it for so long.
What's the biggest problem?
I mean, it's a broad field. I think, one of the things I found very difficult is this idea of teamwork, how teamwork... So I'm not really seen as a team player in politics, right? Which is absolutely bizarre if you look at my background, right? So the idea of being a team player, or teamwork, if you like, is totally different in political parties as it is to, for example, in my background, where you couldn't survive if you weren't a decent team player. And I think that creates sometimes a bit of a dangerous environment, because people end up doing things they then regret, and voting for things they felt like they shouldn't vote for, saying things they felt like they shouldn't say, because you're kind of in that atmosphere and everyone's saying, well, if you don't do this, you're not part of the team. And I know individuals in there think, actually, this probably isn't the right thing to do, but they then sort of go and do it anyway, and because they want to be part of a team. And it's not a bad thing to want to be part of a team, but outside politics, that is completely the wrong thing to do. So, I think there's a lot of changes that I'd like to see in politics, but, in the big scheme of things, I've been here 5 minutes, and, let's see what happens.
You grew up in a strict Baptist family.
Yeah, it was great fun.
What does that mean?
So, Baptists are quite religious. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Strict Baptists, right, are like strict Baptists. And they're good people, but it is a very formal, defined existence. And, so my family grew up in that environment, same clothes to church on a Sunday, hour and a half long services every Sunday, and every opportunity. I mean, I've spent hours of my life sat on church benches listening to this stuff, and and obviously that percolates into home as well, and it's quite a challenging existence, I think, at times. Yeah.
Do you have faith now?
No. No. I mean, I can't lie about it. No, I don't. Afghanistan knocked all that stuff out of me. When you see kind of man's inhumanity to man on that scale, I think it's very difficult to believe in anything, really.
You're very open about your views on politics. You're very straight talking, but I know from Westminster that it's not always good to be straight talking.
No.
Do you have friends in Parliament? I know you have friends I assume you have friends in real life, but do you have any friends in politics? Is it possible to have friends in politics?
So 6 months ago, I would have said no. But I do, yes, I have got friends, and it was difficult. You know, it's difficult when you're a minister, and I think you become quite isolated from the parliamentary party, because actually, if you think about what qualifies you to be a minister in the eyes of Prime Minister and things like that, you know, often it's you know, it's a set of characteristics that probably wouldn't lend themselves to sort of being a close friend of mine, if I could put it like that. So, you know, it was quite an insular experience of being a minister, and I was constantly fighting for this agenda, and essentially got, you know, in some ways, you know, felt like I was kind of set up to fail, right, with the Office for Veterans Affairs. So, of course, I do have friends, and I need to do better, I think, at cultivating that, rather than, you know, sort of kicking the doors down every day and asking why people aren't doing enough for veterans. And, you know, and I hold my hands up to that. I think, you know, I've learned a lot, like I said, over the last 6 months. And for me, I never had anything to do with politics before.
You never even voted. You never even voted until you were a candidate.
So I have to, you know, politics, there's no point howling at the weather, right? So I have to find a way of making this stuff work and getting on and getting this stuff done that I want to get done, and bringing people with me. And
would you like to be a leader of the party?
No.
Okay, clear. Straight talking again. Right, let's talk to you about something more light-hearted. Very recently, in the last week, you were rated the most fanciable male Tory MP according to a dating site poll. How'd you plead?
Well, not guilty, because there's no polite way of saying of my answer to that, which is, you know, being. I don't want to comment on that. I'll just get myself in trouble again. But look, I'm delighted that I've actually won something for once. Yeah. First time I've won something, so there we go.
And you appeared in a Dove shower gel advert. Oh, I mean, you wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't regarded as a hunk.
Well, you say that, but I think what they were after was kind of, you know, slightly sort of chubby past it men, to show that, you know that normal people use Dove. So I think they got that one spot on. But no, I've got no regrets over that. You know, paid the bills. When I was a candidate, I had nothing. I was on benefits, right? I was on tax credits and surviving, you know, working on a building site. So if someone pays me 20 grand to be in an advert, I'm going to be in an advert for 20 grand. I'll do whatever they want, to be frank. So, you know, I have no regrets about that. It was funny. And I understood it wasn't going to be shown in this country, actually. But then they showed it at half-time in the Super Bowl that year in America. And that's how everyone found out about it.
It's been one of my favourite Real Me interviews.
Daisy, you say that?
I don't
say that.
actually.
I know.
I don't actually, and you can watch the ending of all of my interviews.
Okay.
And I'm not sure I've said that before.
You're very kind, Gloria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johnny Mercer. Thank you.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking dry and cold for many. Let's take a look at the details. Skies will clear in the southwest and temperatures will fall. It will be cold tonight, and in the countryside temperatures could dip below freezing. Some showers will continue in the southeast, and it will be windy around the coast. There will be clear spells between the showers. Wales will have a dry and clear evening with the frost forming tonight. Temperatures could fall as low as -2 degrees Celsius in parts of the countryside. Clear skies also extend into the Midlands with a chilly evening to come and temperatures expected to fall quickly. A strong wind will continue to blow along the northeast coast, which brings showers to northeast England. These will be blustery at times with some possible hail. Southern Scotland should stay mostly dry with clear skies, and it will turn rather chilly tonight with temperatures as low as -5 degrees Celsius in some spots. A dry and clear night in Northern Ireland too. It will be breezy around the coast, but turning cold inland.
Canary.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Nana Acquire and welcome